So, Melissa, thank you for joining us here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I wish it was under more positive news circumstances, but we'll get into that, won't we?
Yes, we're going to dive right in. So, can you share an overview with us today about what's happening in the hemp space?
Yeah. So, with the reopening of the government, part of the spending bill that was voted on to end the longest government shutdown in our history, it included a provision that effectively redefines what the 2018 Farm Bill defined as hemp, which was hemp grown with 0.3% THC by weight or less. And any product that came from that was legal with some, provisions regarding the FDA. Within this new spending bill, they redefined it again, saying any product that has more than zero point 0.4 milligrams of THC or other intoxicating cannabinoids per serving is now not legal. It is considered part of, marijuana or federally illegal products.
So, if you could just unpack that, because that was a key thing there. It was
Mhm.
product that I wanted to lean more into. So, it was less than zero point 0.3 of THC, what became legal under the Farm Bill, but now more than zero point 0.4 milligrams in per serving in a product. So,
Mhm.
most of these products have 1.5, 2 milligrams, 5 milligrams. So their serving size, it already makes them illegal.
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
But the important part that those not in the space maybe haven't heard is that this does not go into effect until November 13th, 2026. That's really important. They could have done it immediately. With the Farm Bill, it was immediate. This, they have given a year. And that gives the industry it allows those products are still legal on the market, the 1 milligram, the 2 milligram, the 10 milligram, depending on the state you live in. Those are still legal until that November 13th, 2026 date. So there is some time to hopefully advocate for more positive regulations.
What's tricky is just navigating the federal government with the state government
Yes.
because the laws are not always in sync, and
No.
it's
Yes. And
yeah.
to be clear, the new federal law that supersedes any state law. So all of those states, up over 28 states have passed some form of hemp regulations. That all goes away. It does not matter if the federal government deems this is illegal, then this is now back to being a controlled substance effectively.
And why was this change inserted as a must pass for the government funding? Because they don't seem very related. It seems as though this
No.
would be a different subject.
So there's a reason that the original hemp rules passed as part of the Farm Bill, right? That's part of an agricultural bill. It's an agricultural product. That is the appropriate place for this type of language. First and foremost, we are 2 years overdue for the next Farm Bill. We should have gotten it 2 years ago. We are not going to get it until hopefully 2026. I'm sure most are aware there's a little bit of infighting going on in DC, so it's really hard to get anything passed.
Mm.
So they couldn't get it in as part of that. And this has come up, the Miller Amendment, the Harris Amendment, these this has tried to be pushed as part of the Farm Bill as well as part of standalone regulation. I should note we are 7 years after the passing of the 2018 Farm Bill. We are 3 years since Minnesota became the first state to pass pro hemp regulations that said, okay, the Farm Bill has allowed for this. We are going to put some guardrails up to protect the consumers, but also allow businesses to grow. There's a flourishing market in many, many states. So putting it into the most must pass legislation, I'd argue that we've ever seen in this country, right? Because if this didn't pass, to vote against this, and to be clear, you couldn't vote just against the hemp language. You either voted to reopen the government with the spending bill as it was, or you said no. And so anybody standing up to say, I want to protect hemp, that meant that the airports would continue not functioning, people would continue not getting their SNAP benefits, all of the things that we suffer from with a government shutdown couldn't happen. So, yes, there was a very conscious effort by a few that really, really wanted to quote unquote close the loophole of the 2018 Farm Bill to put it into legislation. And they had tried this in the past in other various bills, and it didn't get through because it's not popular. Consumers very clearly like these products and they do not want to see them banned as a whole. This was a way to do it without facing the immediate blowback, though. From the news stories, you're seeing people are becoming aware and they're not very thrilled about it, especially people that live in states that don't have marijuana laws. So they can't just suddenly pivot to go get these at a dispensary. People in Florida, people in Texas, they don't have other options. Their option is to go to a liquor store or a convenience store or grocery store and purchase these low dose hemp products if they want THC.
I just think it's interesting of thinking of like hemp, and it totally makes sense when you explain it with the farm bill. But so there's a farm bill every 2 years, and it's just to renegotiate subsidies and
Every five
every five. Okay.
is my understanding. And
And it also seems that there's a lot of players, not just for consumers, but Total Wine is a big backer
Mhm.
of these
Yes.
hemp products. So this change, which I know where we have a year, will affect like a lot of
Wow.
people at all ends of the supply chain.
There are major, major companies that are into this. I'm not going to necessarily call out all of the brands, but there's major CPG brands that are invested in this. And as you mentioned, major retailers, Total Wine, DoorDash, edibles.com, Edible Arrangements, now has a hemp business that they run. Target is piloting this. Circle
Yeah.
K from the convenience side. There are major, major players involved. Over 50% of beer wholesalers carry these products. That's a risk averse group. If they lose their liquor license, they don't have a business, yet they are viewing this as a viable category for their future. It is going to impact a lot of people, both from the consumer side, but especially from the business side. And it's not just the people who are 100% involved in hemp.
And in this next year, like how will this affect? I mean, I know you don't work for a brand, but how is this going to affect all these CBD products? Like what is their strategy going to be to
Yeah.
navigate this next year?
The dust is still settling on all of that. I've heard a lot of optimism that people are moving forward for the next year and they are moving, they are going to dedicate money and time towards advocacy efforts for better regulations, but also try to grow their business. We'll see how that plays out because, a lot of these brands have investors. And so it's the question from the investment side if they're going to play a part in this. One thing that we didn't hit on that I think is really important, that zero point 0.4 milligram per serving is really low to the extent that it doesn't just affect hemp THC products, the intoxicating products. It affects a huge percentage of the CBD products that are on the market because most CBD products, if they're made from hemp, unless they're pulling just the CBD out, that's called an isolate product, they're going to have trace amounts of THC. And zero point 0.4 milligrams is so low that I have talked to very prominent health and wellness CBD companies that said
Wow.
this will wipe out the majority of their products too. So it's not just the intoxicating, it's that the threshold was set so low, it's going to impact the non intoxicating CBD health and wellness space as well.
Wow. Well, I'll have to say goodbye to the Martha Stewart gummies.
Why not?
No, not yet, not yet.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean the call for regulation. I'm seeing it unfold in the way that's unfolding is just different than I would imagine it happening.
Right. Well,
Happening in this must pass government bill. It's like, oh wow, and I think it just gives you visibility into these bills that pass. They always put in these very things that people aren't looking very closely at. It's like you need to read the fine print of
yes.
what's happening. It's like
Yes.
you sign your name, like going to the doctor, sign here. It just says your privacy rights. Well, I think I'm going to need to read it.
Exactly.
Um, so, so outside of a ban, what are some other things, that could happen in this next year to
Yeah.
the hemp category?
Yeah, the dust is settling right now. My understanding is there are a number of hemp industry advocacy groups out there, some that play with the whole plant, some that are focused on the farmers, some that are focused on beverage. There's a really wide amount of groups there. My understanding is they are sitting down this week probably and looking at saying, taking a hard look and saying, what is our strategy going to be for the next year? What are we going to be willing to compromise on? Who is our coalition going to be made of? There is likely going to be some divisions and fractions within hemp, right? Because a low dose beverage has different priorities than somebody that is selling those 1,000 milligram gummies, Delta 8 gummies online. Um, there's just a really wide group. So my instinct is it's not going to come down to unification of the hemp industry as a whole. That's going to be really hard to get in a way that is going to be palatable for regulators. Instead, again, this is my experience having covered age restricted categories that are heavily regulated. It's going to come down to a coalition, not just of parts of the hemp industry, but also parts of mainstream retail, consumer groups, uh, existing beverage or CPG companies that are interested in this space. You know, because to be clear, I can tell you from having been at industry events the past year, everybody is talking about hemp THC products. And there are a
Yeah.
number of companies out there, both on the retail and CPG side, that aren't going to touch it so long as there's this gray area going on. But what we have the opportunity to do this year is push for regulations that make it really clear what can and can't be done. We've never had that in this country with a cannabinoid product, with a cannabis product. So I think more likely than not, you're going to see some groups come together and one with a wide coalition that, you know, frankly, money talks in DC. So a big coalition with big players is going to be heard a little bit better. But also, we're all going to have to be really smart about it and look at compromises. If, you know, I'm somebody that can talk, I like some of the higher dose products. A 10 milligram drink for me is a great way to end the night. But if they said we can only get to 5, that's all that this Congress is going to agree on, by all means, you know, uh, I've heard a lot of people joke that they don't want 3-2, the equivalent of 3-2 beer in weed. They don't want 3-2 weed. My argument
What is
is
that exactly?
so sorry.
Yeah.
When prohibition first ended, you know, I can't remember if it was nationwide or certain states didn't want high potency alcohol. So they limited to 3.2% beer. And there are states that still, you know, most of them have gone away because they don't sell at all. It's a very, very low amount of alcohol. But for example, in Minnesota, going back to Minnesota, convenience stores can only sell 3.2% beer. They still can, like, that is still a
Wow.
prohibition era regulation that they are stuck with.
At the
So the
same time,
cannabis,
they can have hemp infused beverages.
yes, you can
Yeah.
have
So,
10
okay.
milligrams of hemp infused beverages and cannot sell 4% beer. Minnesota is a special place. I love it. But so, you know, people are comparing a low dose cap to 3.2% beer. And I would argue 3.2% beer brought us out of prohibition and got us to a place where we can have higher ABVs. And I'd much rather that than a prohibition.
What risks do consumer advocates see in pushing these products, like, back underground? If there was a
Oh,
ban, that happens. Like, what are the risks in terms of like the black market? Because I mean, I've definitely heard of people before the hemp bill going to delis and getting
mhm,
gummies, and have no one has any
mhm.
idea
Yeah,
what the dosage is. And
yeah,
so, what are the dangers there?
yeah.
That
They're going to keep breaking the law. The stores that will carry that will keep carrying it because they're already taking a big
yeah,
calculated risk. And those are the same stores and the same manufacturers that, I'm sorry, don't care about carting. The
yeah.
website that my mother in law's friend's kid ordered from, they're going to keep selling. And if they get shut down, they'll just build another website.
So a ban is almost more dangerous to public health than regulation.
Yeah, responsible regulation makes competition. Suddenly, it's not so appealing to if the FDA would approve some flavors in vape, all of those bad actors suddenly have to compete with products that are being sold in a quality store where people are already going into. They can go get their flavors Why would they go to a back alley or to like the crappy deli, you
Yeah, because
know?
you want something that has been vetted. It's like
Exactly.
even dispensaries, I think even with the opioid crisis and fentanyl, people are like, I'm gonna go to the dispensary because I don't wanna die. And I'm gonna
Exactly.
go to the dispensary
Yes.
because I know that they're testing it and this is
Right.
a
Exactly.
certified place and it's much safer than buying it on the street. So
Right.
you're
Right.
right that there's are different versions in different categories that of dangers.
Yes, we've seen it before,
Yeah,
and again, if I had the opportunity to go talk to Congress, that would be my question. Okay, you view this as super, super dangerous. You don't want the kids getting the high dose copycat candy gummies. How are you going to enforce?
yeah.
What's the plan?
Melissa, well, thank you so much. This has been an eye-opening conversation. I think our audience will very much appreciate learning about what's going on with the hemp industry. And I don't think this will be the last time that we talk because this is going to be an ever-evolving
Yes.
situation. So I
Yes.
will say goodbye, but not au revoir.
I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much.